Welcome again to Dataedo Talks. As always, it's good to see all of you. I've, talked to some of you already here this morning. It's good to see you. Glad to see you engaged and interested in this. Today, we're going to be talking about some of the new features that are in the new version 24.2, some exciting stuff. So we'll get to that in a minute. Before I go there, we did have a couple of questions that were posted when you all registered for this session. There were a couple of questions that people put in there, so I want to address those very first, so we for sure don't lose them. The first one is, can Dataedo connect to ServiceNow or Confluence? Also would like to ask what options there are on having Confluence linked into the web catalog. And for an answer to that, I'm going to hand to Piotr and possibly Samuel, whoever's appropriate there.
Yeah, I mean, there is no connector, I don't know, integration with any of those two. I mean, Confluence, you can always link, provide a link to Dataedo, right? That's not too difficult. Yeah, there is no plugin for Confluence, right? As for ServiceNow, well, we are thinking how we can integrate with Jira. I assume it's similar, but this is still just in R&D phase. We haven't done anything on that, so you can always use links to objects in your tickets. So that's like the easiest way to integrate. But there is no connector or any integration.
Okay, good information. Thank you. The other question is, we're beginning to work with the PII utility / data classification, so sensitivity classification, and would be interested in getting more insight into how this works and can be used for other types of data. Obviously, we're not going to answer that question here today, but I'm going to keep this on my list here, and probably what we'll do is include a session in the future. One of these talk sessions, we'll probably do one focused specifically on sensitivity classification. It seems to be something that has a lot of moving parts, so that people sometimes are confused about what they can do, what they can't do, what they're allowed to do as far as customizing that, and how to use it. So probably an upcoming session about that. I'm going to go ahead and dive into today's tip. So I'm going to share my screen. And the tip for today is going to be about, as I mentioned, some of the new features that are added, or new functionality that's added into Dataedo, specifically Portal, in version 24.2. So you're getting kind of a sneak peek here if you haven't upgraded yet. And the thing I want to talk about specifically is how the workflow statuses have been leveraged to influence or to control visibility of things in the portal. So just as a foundation, we're going to start here. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, we're going to start here with a definition of basically the user groups that you should have, the basic user groups you should have in your Dataedo portal. These align with the roles that are out of the box with Dataedo. So the first three here: admins, data stewards, and approvers. These are basically editor capability licenses, or I should say roles, editor capability roles. And so admins, of course, can do anything in the Dataedo portal. They have full access to everything. Data stewards can edit everything in the community and in the documentation, in the entire catalog. So these are the people, this is the group you assign those people who have editor licenses for desktop, you also assign them into this data stewards group. So they have the same access privilege there. Approvers is a brand new role and group that is basically limited editor capability. So this has been added to facilitate use with the workflows that we're going to talk about here in a minute. That's the reason I wanted to talk about this. And then the other three, the community members, explorers, and viewers, these are the non-editor people, basically your end users. And the only place here where people can actually interact with the catalog is the data community members who can, leave comments and do the ratings and things like that. But they don't actually have the ability to edit any of the catalog content. So the ones I want to focus on are the first three who have that editor capability. All right. So what happens in the new workflows, and I will open it and show it to you in a minute. What happens in workflows is that tasks like defining something or reviewing something or publishing something, those tasks are assigned to specific people or specific groups of people based on the groups that they're in. That's why I talked about the groups here. They have different capabilities. So this first one, depending on the status, they have different visibility. Here, is it visible to admins, data stewards, and approvers, those editors? Yes, in every case. They can see all workflow objects with any of the workflow statuses. They can see anything. Okay. Is it visible to the community, the explorers, and the viewers, the non-editor group? And you can see in the base configuration, the default configuration, the only thing that is visible to those people are objects that are in the published, in the published group. If they have a published workflow status, they are visible. Otherwise, they're not visible. So this gives you that ability to work objects through an entire workflow before making them visible to your end users. So that controls that, and I'll show you how that happens. And then the final one is we have in Portal now, we have a Steward Hub option that allows those people who are editors and who are assigned tasks to see the objects that have been assigned to them. So in the version that I set up, the way I set it up is people who are owners of data can see those that are in a workflow status of idea. The documenters can see those that are in definition, and so on. So it targets who can see things. The example right up here at the top shows what I'm going to show you here. I put Linda in as an owner so she can review these ideas. John is in the documenter group, so he sees two objects in my example that need to be defined, and so on. So different people see tasks that are assigned to them. Okay, so to illustrate this, let's go ahead, go over here to Portal. This is version 24.2.1, as you can see. Okay, so the reason this is all important is that idea of things being published or not, honestly. Because if you have, whoops, I want to go here. If you have objects that up until this point have been visible, regardless of their workflow status assignment, and now some of your community users, for example, come in and say, hey, what happened to all of these glossary terms that I used to be able to see and I can no longer see after the upgrade? It's probably because they are in a different status. Only those that are in the published status are, by default, visible. You could change these if you needed to. You could make it so that others are visible, but to do so would defeat some of the capability of the workflow process. And over here in these next two columns, we define who is assigned a task. Remember, I mentioned that owners were assigned the idea tasks, documenters were assigned the in documentation or in definition tasks. That's where that's all controlled. And this one defines what they can do within those objects. So if I go back now to Steward Hub, this is that example that I showed you where different tasks are assigned to different people. I'm currently signed in as an editor, so I can see everything. I'm in the data steward group. I can see everything. But if I were to sign out, let's go ahead and do this. And if I sign in as, for example, Linda, here we go. And we'll refresh this. So when Linda signs in, if she goes to Steward Hub as an editor, it tells her that she has these three objects that are in the idea status that she needs to make a decision on. Is she going to accept them and send them further down the workflow, or is she going to reject them? She has those tasks that she can perform. And the same goes for other people. If I sign in as, I don't know, for example, Barbara, right here, she is not an editor. So she does not see any tasks. She cannot see the Steward Hub at all. She has nothing assigned to her. And when she goes into the glossary, for example, a whole bunch of objects are not available to her because they are not in a status of published. So here, the category there that contains all of those has probably ready to publish status. I don't recall, but it's not published, so she can't see it, but she can see those objects that are within it that are in a published status. So the idea here is the visibility of what they can see is based on the workflow status, and their assignments as editors is visible in the Steward Hub. Just wanted to prepare you in advance of your upgrades so that if you upgrade and maybe some of your community members contact you and say, hey, what happened? Why can I no longer see these objects that I used to be able to see? Right. For example, all of these, that's the answer. It's because of the workflows, and only objects that are in the workflow status of published will be available for them to view. I have recorded a longer video about workflows, how to use them, and all of the ins and outs of this. So watch for that. That'll be published here coming up very soon. But just in advance of that, I just want to prepare you for that question. If people contact you and say, hey, why can I no longer see objects that I could see a week ago? That's the answer. It's because of that published status. And if you want to fix that immediately, as an editor, you can go in and change those to published status, bring them back to visibility, or you can tell them they're in the middle of a workflow of being reviewed. And when they're available, you will be able to see them. So that just to prepare you in advance for that. Yeah, so if you want, right here is a summary of that. If you wanted to, grab a screen capture of that so you can have that for reference, feel free. Are there any questions?
Can editor change published status to a lower status for glossary term?
Yes, yes. Editors have the ability to move things wherever they want, either through the portal, or you can do that in the desktop app, same as you always have. So if I go into here, see if I've got a good example. Yeah, here I've got some objects that are published. Here's one right here. That knowledge base container, this is a category, has been published. I could move that back to idea. That's perfectly fine. There's no problem with doing that. As an editor, you can do that. Since editors are the only ones who have access to desktop, there is no visibility control here. It's as an editor, you can do anything through the desktop app.
And then it was asked, and we may need clarification. Can we customize the business glossary?
Customize the business glossary?
Yeah, it would be great to have a little context as far as customization in what way, right?
Yeah. Yeah, if the question is, can we customize the workflow as it interacts with the business glossary and controls that visibility? Yes, absolutely. That tutorial video I mentioned goes into how to do that.
Yeah, I think that's what it was in reference to. Buckle, if you could confirm that, that would be great. And if not, Richard, I guess we can continue on because I do think that that's what it was
Yeah.
referring to.
Okay. Other questions?
So we can define our own roles more or less.
Yeah, within the context or within the limits that right now we have one workflow available to us. Let me sign in as an editor. So when I go here, currently we have one workflow available, and you can modify that as needed. I don't want to get deep into how to do that. Like I said, that tutorial video is coming, or we can get together to talk about it. What I wanted to mention, though, is right here. In following versions, you can create and manage more workflows. So you could have a workflow that is specific for glossary terms, a different workflow that is for domains, for example, and managing those. So you will have the ability to be much more flexible with that than you are in this version. Right now, you have flexibility in designing this particular workflow, but not creating others.
Yeah, but I think the question was about custom roles. So yeah, you can define user groups, more custom roles and user groups, and also you can build roles, custom field roles. So like over here, there's a owner, right? So you can create I don't know, a steward, owner, custodian, subject matter expert, and then assign the workflow statuses to that role.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
customizable already right now.
Right. Yeah, that is ready. These, for example, that group of documenters right there, I created that group specifically. I also created this group of reviewers. So you have a lot of flexibility here in who can do things, and what they can do within that visibility. Okay. Thanks for setting me straight on that, Piotr. Other questions?
No, I think that clarified, so we should be good to go.
Okay, great. All right, so here we are. The next thing I want to talk about is also new in 24.2. It's the onboard scheduler. This is really exciting. And it's found in desktop only right here. It's in the ribbon scheduler right there. I click on that. I've already configured this here and have a bunch of tasks running. But basically what this does is it removes the need or eliminates the need for you to download that command file. Remember, for those of you who have automated your metadata refreshes or your profiling updates, you had to download a command file and then use that to put it on a schedule using Windows Task Scheduler, for example. This eliminates that need. So I'm just going to talk about the parts of this and then a little bit about how it works. So I open this from the scheduler button up there on the ribbon. The parts of this were on the tasks page right there. The top parts, the top section is the data sources that you have already created connections to in your data catalog. So in my case, I have connections to 4 data sources here. And according to what I saved when I created those, it tells me where the host is, what the connection user was, how I signed into that database to import that metadata. And then over here, this is telling us what's available to be done with those, or what I've already set up as tasks. The tasks themselves are in this bottom section. Let's open that up a little bit. So I can see all of them here. I've chosen all tasks. I can see all of them. Or if I choose one, it shows me the tasks that are specific to that data source and the type. I've got an import changes. I've got a refresh data profiling, and it tells me what schedule those are on. So I set up the schedule of when those are going to be refreshed. It tells me when it was last executed and what the result was. When is the next execution? And then we can actually go and see how that has executed in the past, all the history of what has happened. Let me go back to all tasks here. If I go to the executions tab, this shows me all of the times that this has run since I set up those tasks. And you can see what I did here. You can see the history. 9 days ago, I set these up for import changes, and they ran manually, no problem. And then 8 days ago, they all ran automatically for both import changes and data profiling. 7 days ago, they did the same. 6 days ago, 5 days ago, 4, and so on. And then I changed the tasks. I changed it from running daily to what we see over here of running on Mondays and on the first day of the month. So we see I ran them manually to test them, but they haven't run on the automatic schedule yet. Monday hasn't come around yet. The first of the month hasn't come around yet. So this is telling us what has happened in the past. Over here, of course, we see when will they run. These will run 3 days from now on Monday. These will run 17 days from now on the first day of the month. In this view, we also get information about the task itself. So if I click that task, double click, we can see what is going to be imported or what's going to happen with that task and what connection does it use. More about connections in the video I've prepared for this. In a nutshell, the connection that you set up here when you create the task is based on the connection that you've saved, but it can be modified. So if I look at this one, for example, right there, you can see my saved connection user was my Windows user, but down here in the connection that the scheduler is using, it's using my SQL Server authentication. They don't have to be the same. Then we have the same kind of a view over here. We can choose a particular task and see the details and the history of that. So we have lots of details here, tell us about the connection, of course, and again, those details of what's supposed to happen. So we have visibility into those tasks and, when they're scheduled, how they connect, what has happened in the past, what's scheduled for the future. The key to making all of this work is what's called an agent. An agent, the best way to think of an agent is it's a copy of the desktop client engine without an interface. Basically, you're installing the desktop engine on a server. In this case, I have it right there on this desktop machine, and it installs the engine, but not all of the interface. The only use of it is this scheduler and importing metadata. We have the version of that when we installed it, when it was active, and so on. Doing the agent is key to making all of this work. We do have documentation of how to do this. Setting up the agent is key to making this happen. It requires a step in there where you create a Windows service to access and run desktop. That's the most difficult part of this that I encountered when I set it up, and that's because I'm not a expert on those kinds of processes. But I just followed the documentation. There is a link there that is Windows documentation of how to manage those services. I did it. I followed the directions, and in a matter of 10 minutes, I believe, I had the agent set up and running. The place you get to the agent for that setup is you go to the location. Let me find it on here. You go to the location where you have Dataedo installed on your computer, Dataedo desktop, and you just search for this agent installer right there. You run that. It's a command line interface. You run that, go through the steps. It's going to ask for an encrypted connection string right there. You get it right there. It copies it and you use it. And you just work through that process. This scheduler will tell you, if your agent has not been installed or if there is an error with it, anything like that. It'll tell you if it's not working. And then once you have that installed and operational, you're welcome to start creating tasks. Creating the tasks is super easy. You can see I've already created some of these here. Let's just delete those so you can see how easy this is. Remove those. So I look at this connection that I've already made and saved, and I add tasks. And here I'm going to choose which tasks I want to do. Do I want to do only import changes or refresh the profiling or both? And you choose what you want to do. Oh, you can schedule more of these at one time if you wanted. You could set all of these up at once. I already have these other tasks, of course, so I don't need those. You go to next, and it's going to ask you to test your connection to make sure it works using the agent. If I go here on agent, do that test, and I'll tell you this is going to fail because it's using my Windows user account. So give that a minute to fail here. Okay, there we have failed. So I know I need to fix my configuration. Go to configure right there, and I'm just going to change this from the Windows authentication to SQL Server. And test it again. There we go, it's successful. Shows that it's tested. You go here, it's going to validate. Everything's good. And then here, you're going to choose the cadence of this task. So you tell it the time of day you want it to run. You can tell it, if you want to skip days, if you want to have it run every 2 days or every 7 days or something like that, you can do that. Or you could choose weekly and say, run it on Mondays, like I had before, or Mondays and Fridays, whatever you want. You could go to the monthly and say, run it on the 1st and the 15th. You have full control over all of this to set up that schedule. And then you go to next, and it says, it creates that, and it says, yes, it was successful. I'm not going to do that. So setting up those jobs, those tasks is really easy. And like I say, once you have that, you can review what you did, make sure it's good, watch all of that activity. You can test them. So I can trigger that and have it run right now. So let's go ahead and do that. It won't take a minute. So you can have that ability to test and configure things as you want. As I say, the documentation exists for these. You can review that when you upgrade to 24.2. But I believe this is a huge step forward in being able to manage your connections. In the past, of course, you either had to run them manually, which is a pain, or you had to download that command file and schedule it and manage that, which wasn't difficult, but if there were ever any changes, it started to be difficult. So let's see if this is finished. Yeah, right there. It finished 41 seconds ago and it succeeded. So pretty easy interface. This is available only in the desktop currently. I will ask Piotr, are there plans to move this to Portal in the future anytime soon, or are we relying on desktop for now?
Yeah, as we announced last time, we're moving everything to the web. Obviously, agent will stay. There will be an instance of agent within the portal, so you'll be able to perform imports from the portal itself. We're currently designing this. This is the feature I initially wanted to show you today, the import option from the web, and that would be include the option to schedule. So scheduling will be part of the adding source.
Okay, great. That sounds exciting. I want to give you time to talk about that. So I'm just going to make one more comment, and that is about the agent here. You set up one agent for your repository. If you have two repositories, you need two copies of agent. If you need to do that, contact us and we'll help you through that. It's not currently extremely straightforward. We can help you do that if you need, but most people are just going to have one repository, one agent, no problem. So just be aware of that. Otherwise, any questions about this? I know that's a lot of information.
As you're thinking about questions, I'd like to add the comment in the future. We'd like to add option to add multiple agents per repository and also assign a task to specific agent. So for instance, if you have a specific server that only has access to certain sources, you know, behind some kind of VPN or something, then you'll be able to point to the agent that you want to. Right? Currently is just one.
Yeah, perfect. That's a good point. The other thing I noticed currently, as it is right now, I know some people like to have two different import jobs for their for a particular connection. For example, import metadata only on a weekly basis, and maybe on a monthly basis, import the metadata and build the lineage. Those would be two separate tasks. Currently, we can only do one. So just be mindful that you can only have that one configuration per connection now, for example, on your import changes. Something in the chat?
Just someone saying that to leave. You're fine to carry on. Oh, one question did. So can admins see what agents are set up?
So currently, as we mentioned, this is in desktop only. So an admin will be probably an editor, so they'll be able to see this here. If you have a kind of a admin who doesn't have an editor license, then no, they won't have access to desktop. They wouldn't be able to see this currently. When it's moved to portal, of course, yes, they will. Okay. I want to hand off to Piotr now. That sneak peek sounds exciting. I even want to see that part of that. So I'm gonna stop sharing and hand off.
Okay, thanks. Well, actually, I want to show you something else today. The new import is something still we are designing, and I'll show you maybe next time. But I wanted to share you something I find even more exciting. Is the sneak peek into our. It's not a design. It's an R&D. It's a POC of various dashboards. So these are the things I've done. I don't know what's gonna get into the product. However, we want to build a system in the portal where you can add your own custom visualizations. So, you know, if you like some chart, we can you can build it on your own, or we can build it for you. Okay, let me share. Okay, I'm gonna share you a prototypes that I built with two tools. One is Redash, and the other one is Superset. These are just like open source dashboarding solutions. I expect we can build something similar in Dataedo. So in Dataedo, you would like to add a number of customizable dashboards and a number of predefined dashboards. So let's have a look at the system dashboard. This will be a dashboard for admin, and this could also include the list of agents, right, and their status. I suppose it will be possible because it's visible in the repository. So all those queries are run against our repository. So for instance, the size of the repository, right? If you're using SQL Server Express, you don't want to exceed 10 gigabytes. How the size changed over time? How many keywords we from the keywords browser we indexed. Over here, you can see the size of the particular modules, right? So you can see that majority is the changes history. This is in a graphic of format. That this is yet another way to present that. Yeah, and you could see what grew the most. So data profiling grew the most in our case. All right, so again, we'll ship some kind of basic charts, and you will be able to add your own or give your ideas for us to build new visualizations. Another one is an overview of the data catalog. So what you have imported to your to the catalog. So how many assets you have, what kind of assets there are. So you can see we have 2,500 tables. This is broken down by connection type. It could be sorted. It'd be better. Over here is the number of assets over time. In this case, it's per connection type. This is per particular source, right? And we could also add something similar by the type. Another one gives me an overview of what's been going on with imports, how much time it took, and so on in the how that changed over time. Over here you can see the imports and the time that they took broken by source. So I can check how that changed over time. Yeah, so you can see we have been doing improvements version by version, and the time drops, right? You can see it halves every time we do a release because we're improving the imports, right? So you can see it came from 8 minutes to, I don't know, half a minute. And you can see over here also if the scheduler is working, right? So there are some gaps. I don't know, something was not working then. And then we enabled over here, we enabled the scheduler. Really, really great stuff, this scheduler. Okay, here's an overview of the sources and when they were last imported. Reader doesn't have color coding, so we could color code it, right? So this one, okay, this is a test, so it's not important, but you can see this one was updated a long time ago. This is I don't know, one of the particular tasks of the import. This is a parsing and how much time it took. So SQL, just the step of SQL parsing when it was performed, and I guess how many objects or something like that. These charts are, yeah, that they were already shown on the other one. This is these two show what have been done so what sources were imported in particular date. So this is a matrix, right? It could be condensed more. It's not super visible that way, but you can see what was important and what's not. It's really easy to see those gaps. Again, the data profiling. This is a daily and this is a weekly view by the source. So how many columns we have profiled, and some logs also. Yeah. You can from the history you'll be able to see which were scheduled by scheduler, which were run with command line, so the old way to schedule, and which were launched manually with desktop, right? So you can see some errors, but that would be very helpful for our debugging. So if anything fails in parsing or other tasks, we have those messages and you can send it to us and we can investigate. Okay. This doesn't have to be in one dashboard. We could maybe split it into dashboards or tabs. Here's another. This is particularly for parser. Parsing broken down by different types. It was done by scheduler, desktop, or the type or the dialect and so on. Here's the time it took by the size of the script. Yeah, and also an error log. Any questions so far?
None in chat. So unless anyone wants to
Okay.
speak out, then we're good to go.
All right.
I like the assets by type. I really like that assets by type view.
Nice. So over here we have more analytics like that. So I proposed columns. So an analysis of columns in the repository. So you can see, for instance, that the varchar is the biggest one, like the most popular one. Here I have a lot of lists of different types of lists of columns. So for instance, empty columns, that information comes from the profiling, largest text fields, I don't know, unique integer columns, which might be, are primary key or unique candidates. I can even, maybe limit them like that are not primary key on, so primary key candidates. Here I listed the unique integers with gaps, which meaning that there are some missing values in between. This was recently we had an invoice ID and there were some missing IDs, and that caused some issues. JSON columns and so on. The imagination is using the metadata we collect, including the profiling. You can do a lot of, extract a lot of insights from the information we already gathered. Similar thing for tables. Biggest tables, depending on number of columns, like by number of columns, number of cells, and number of rows. Empty tables, interesting that we have 24 pages of tables that are completely empty. List of primary keys. Yeah, so also, interesting to analyze what data types are used, what naming conventions, and so on. So things like that give you an idea of the schema of your data estate. Let me switch to, yeah. How do I hide this? I have to do like that. Okay, let me switch to another tool, Apache Superset. And this is where I built something different. Over here, I built a diagram of the tables and their relationships. So this is particular table, and I think the size of the bubble is the number of rows, I suppose. And here I have the size of the bubble depends on the number of times the table is referred to. So the bigger, the more of the master data it is. So those big ones are the ones that are used as a primary table more often. And interesting, if we add some search, it could be interesting. You might notice that I added it has colors. And those colors is a new concept we would like to add at some point, is classifying table by its type. We would like to do this semi-automatically, but with your option to change that. So so not all the tables are equal, right? So there are some transactional tables, right? There are some reference data, so like simple lookups. There are some master data, so your customers, employees, and so on. History tables, and a number of different types of tables. So we'd like to provide you with the option to apply that and explore repository by that. So over here is a list of those tables. So for instance, in data warehouse, you could have the dimension and fact tables and dimension time, right? You could see how many tables are like that in the repository in your databases. Okay, so let's move on. I think we're almost at time. Feel free to interrupt me when the time's up. I don't really see the clock.
Yeah, we have 3 minutes.
Okay. Another different types of functionality. More on the stewardship end. This is the dashboard that shows me a number of well, actually, this shows me the owners, where I have assigned owners to my assets, and broken by source, by type, by yeah, these are for particular assets, asset types separately. I could do the same for domains and other types of data. Yeah, the data that I have to complete in Dataedo. For instance, let's say I have to complete owner for every single asset. This gives me a progress, and I could also have a list of assets that do not have owner listed. Similarly, domains, I could see domains that are objects that are not assigned to any domain. You have your other custom fields, like, I don't know, subject matter expert, could be the same story. Over here, I have more specific dashboard specifically for business glossary, and I have more information, more analytics specifically for that. Here's the broken down by owner, who's the owner. Here's you can see the owner and status. So I can see who has some glossary terms for review. This is a global view, so 90% are published, but there are still some as an idea and in definition. So these are the workflows that Richard was presenting. Yeah, here's the owner, and here's the publishing status. So this information is almost the same, except this one hides all the details and just shows which are already visible. So 91.7% are visible in our repository. Yeah, similar idea for owners. This is a collection of information from the data profiling. Similar concept as previously, where I was looking at different, analyzing the information from the repository about the profiling, different, how many different data types I have. Okay, this one shows the progress of profiling, and so I can see which where I need to do profiling, and what's the progress on that. I think this was already on the other one. Yeah, I think these were, yeah, pretty much the same. Okay, I built a couple of charts that show what's the distribution of how empty the table is. Here is the information that shows the distribution of unique versus non-unique or non-distinct columns. So these columns over here are fully unique, and these columns over here are fully don't have any unique values in them. Right? These are in between.
And Peter, we are at time.
Okay, good.
So perfect.
Perfect. Okay, that was just a sneak peek of the things we're working on, that, and then some of that will find its way into upcoming releases.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you for that, Piotr. That's good stuff coming up, or potentially coming up, I should say. Thank you all for joining. We are at time, so I'm gonna stop this. But thank you again. Thanks for your participation. Thanks for your questions, and look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Richard. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.
Well.